It's getting harder to face every day. Don't let it show. Don't let it show.
Welcome back. This is Chess 12 Part 3. And Part 3 deals with another variation on the Chess 3 theme. If you recall, Chess 3 had to deal with setting up a different number of rooks, bishops, or knights. And once again, that all depends on what the players decide as they are setting up the pieces. Now, as you see here, I have a group of pieces already set up. And what I have put in place, you can see the piece setup is almost identical to regular chess with two differences. Okay, on the C1 square and the C8 square, I have a different piece. Normally there's a bishop that goes there, but this piece here is called the princess. You also notice on F1 and F8 you have another piece called the prince. Okay, the prince and the princess are two additional pieces created to add interest to the game. Okay, there are many more pieces that we will add for Chess 3, but we'll introduce them a little at a time so that we can get used to them and we can play the game with them, with all of the pieces together. Okay, so let's talk about the prince and the princess. By the way, this game here, I decided could be considered a standard or classic game with the prince and the princess. You can call it the royal standard if you like. By no means, as you're playing Chess 3, as you are setting up pieces, do you have to set up the pieces this way. Okay, but as I have gone through the various levels of chess, the chess games that I created, I found it convenient to make a standard or a classical version of some of the games so that at least the viewers or whoever's playing the game can kind of all play something similar that they can discuss and that they can talk about the rules before they go on to something more advanced. So as you see here, I have the princess set up to the left of the queen, and I have the prince set up to the right of the king. To the right of the prince I have the knight, to the right of the princess I have the bishop. You could just as easily use two bishops and no knights, the bishops being in the B and G columns. You could also try using two knights and no bishops, the knights being also set up in the B and G columns. Okay, the main idea here is we set up the princess and the prince where they're at, just so that we can more or less all practice the same type of game before we vary it, like is typical in Chess 3. Alright, so we have a few moves here, and we're going to do some movement of the princes. Both white and black are looking to castle on their king side, and they need to move their princes out of the way. Now, here is the movement for the princes. Okay, the princes can move one or two squares in any direction. Okay, so you see here I moved white's prince 2 squares. I will move black's prince 1 square. Okay, 1 square straight ahead. Alright, now the princesses are similar. They can move 1 and 2 squares in any direction. And the question might come up, what is the difference between the prince and the princess? The difference is, if the king is in checkmate, then the prince becomes the king, if the prince is still on the board. Likewise, if the queen is captured, the princess automatically becomes the queen wherever the princess is at. Okay, so this is an unusual piece, and it kind of goes with ancient royalty, medieval royalty to some extent. The prince essentially was heir to the throne. Okay, so we set up a piece to mimic that. So as you play this game, right now we've moved the princes out of the way so that white and black both want a castle. But then the consideration is, do you want to protect your prince or use your prince as another piece? It's not as strong a piece as, let's say, bishop. All right. But it's got some. It can cover quite a few squares, quite a few open squares. So it does have some useful capabilities. So this kind of arrangement can give something like the Queen Sacrifice a little bit different meaning. For example, this play right here, black can take white's princess, white can take black's queen, and immediately as white takes black's queen, black's princess turns into a queen. So, in an odd sense, that was like a princess exchange, if you will. And that maneuver that I did there, I don't know how good of a maneuver that was, how tactical, if there was any advantage to that move, but it just demonstrated part of how this piece works, this particular piece works. Okay, essentially 14 squares that the rook has compared to the 16 that the prince has. Okay, but as the prince moves towards the edge of the board, it has less squares to control. Okay, so on the edge of the board, right here, it's got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Whereas the rook is still going to have essentially the same number of squares. Okay, so that you get the idea of where that piece stands, and then you've got the added fact that it works as a backup. But the disadvantage is it works as a backup. However, does that mean that you keep the prince back away from the other pieces so you don't lose the prince in case the king goes down? That's a mixed bag. Okay, and you have to decide as you start playing, do you want to have a prince? Do you want to have a princess? I would strongly recommend only having one prince and one princess in the game only. Don't have more than that, because I think it would imbalance the game too much. That being said, even though I'm the creator of this game, and currently probably the official rules are what I say, I am welcome to input on any of these things, because it's going to take a lot more than one person to figure these things out. And as the game progresses, more and more people will have an input, and more people will say, hey, we're going to change this, we're going to make this different. But that's just my recommendation at this point, and we'll go from there. So once again, as you play Chess 3, I recommend playing the standard royal game, if you will, that I just showed you. And then after that, you can, once again, do the setup person by person. White sets up his king. Black sets up the queen, and then the other pieces are fair game. You see I've got a setup right here where the prince was set up in the corner, the princess is set up in the opposing corner, a couple of bishops, a knight and a rook, okay, all opposing each other. The next part of this series, we will add a couple other pieces to make things even more interesting. So enjoy the game now with the prince and the princess, and have fun.